I'm Jonathan McDonald here with longtime Province sports columnist Tony Gallagher. We're here to talk today about Gordie Howe. 86 years old, Tony. He has had Alzheimer's for several years and, of course, most recently battered by a series of strokes and is now fighting for his life. I thought this would be a good chance for us to talk a bit about Gordie.
Good idea, especially when long time finally means something.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the funny thing, Tony, is that you started at the Province in 1970.
That is correct.
Gordie Howe was finishing his NHL career around that time. So as a hockey writer, you don't really have that many memories of him.
Zero in terms of him playing in the NHL. When it comes to the WHA, now that's a different matter. I spent several evenings prior to games with New England when they were in the NHL, when Gordie Howe was hanging around the Whalers as kind of a PR guy. But the best memories really are from when he was in the WHA, both when I was covering the Vancouver Blazers for the most part, and then back when Harry Neal became coach here of the Vancouver Canucks, the stories that Harry used to tell from his year with the New England Whalers of the WHA when he coached Gordie, when he played with Mark and Marty, and all three guys played together in the 77-78 season. A season, by the way, in which Gordie, at the age of 50, led the team with 96 points. Granted, it was the WHA, but 96 points in any league is not bad at age 50.
So what did Harry Neal have to tell you about that experience?
Well, what he was mostly, we talked about the way Gordie conducted himself, and Harry was an early riser, and every time they'd go on the road, he always found when he'd get to the coffee shop very early in the morning that he had always been beaten to the coffee shop by Gordie, who was an extremely early riser and was always there going over the papers, the New York Times, the local paper, and he talked several times with Gordie about that. And the overall impression was that Gordie felt for years in the NHL that he had been exploited by NHL ownership. He was underpaid all his life, and from all that time forward, he always tried to increase his worldly knowledge. I think he felt he had been made something of a fool and kind of let his other NHL players down by not getting more money, therefore raising the bar for everyone else. And he wanted to increase his knowledge in every area.
Our colleague Jim Jameson tells me a story about Gordie Howe once being here with Bobby Hull. This was over 30 years ago, 32, 33 years ago. Bobby Hull, of course, had the $1 million smile. He was sort of a poster boy for the NHL at the time. Gordie, though, Jim described as like your next door neighbor, the guy you could actually sit with and just talk to about anything, that there was no pretension around Gordie.
Well, those are the exact discussions I used to have with him. I remember I spoke with him right in the Hartford Civic Center Coliseum shopping mall. He was just out there waiting for somebody, and that person never came. Gordie and I ended up just talking for about 45 minutes. But I want to get on to some of these Harry Neal stories. Of course, being the coach of the Whalers, he had to interact with them all the time, and he said that Gordie was never more vicious than when he was looking after his two boys. If anyone would touch Marty or run Mark or anything like that, he would take their heads off in the corners. And the WHA was pretty lawless in those days. There were a lot of fights, a lot of, quote, incidents that would be wholly unacceptable in the game today. And another cute story that Harry used to tell, and he said that Gordie always insisted that the two sons never called him Dad on the ice or at any time in any team functions. He was only to be called Gordie because he was a player and he was a teammate. There was no father-son relationship. But every now and again that would leak out and the boys would forget. And it happened most of the time when they'd get open and Gordie had the puck. And suddenly it wasn't Gordie or, hey, I'm over here. It was, Dad, Dad. And bang, the puck would be on their stick and Mark was away on a breakaway. So they had particular preferences for the way they should behave, and sometimes they changed.
They often refer to the Gordie Howe hat trick, Tony. scoring a goal, an assist, and being in a fight in the game. You've told me before that Gordie wasn't really much of a fighter when push came to shove. He was a stick man. But there's also the reference to the goal and the assist. This was a guy who could do it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And look after his teammates. And he was a great practical joker as well. And with respect to his use of the stick, he used to even stick people as a joke. He was a good friend of Andy Bathgate, who was the coach of the Vancouver Blazers. And one time, Andy was down watching his players warm up, and he was leaning this way towards his own zone. And Gordie, which was the opposition that night, saw his hands on the boards and just went by and slid over the red line and slashed Bathgate on the hands. And Bathgate's giving this one, like that. And he looks up and he sees Gordie smiling on the other side of the red line. That was Gordie's idea of a practical joke with his friends.
Right. So Gordie could break your hands,
When
break
he
your
was your
fingers
friend,
as a friend.
If he didn't like
but
you.
he still loved you, right?
Yeah, but if he didn't like you, God help you.
Tony, thanks very much. Great to look back at the life of Gordie Howe.
Thanks, Jonathan.